You think you're ready? You've seen the memes, read the conspiracy theories, laughed at the alien jokes. You've imagined yourself sneaking past guards under the cover of darkness, crawling through the desert sands, finding your way into the most secret base in the world. You picture yourself uncovering glowing green lights, strange technology, maybe even shaking hands with a small gray visitor from the stars. But no, you wouldn't survive a day in Area 51. Not because of danger, exactly. Not because of lasers or guards or secret agents with black sunglasses. But because it's quiet. Too quiet. And the silence there isn't peaceful. It's the kind of silence that sinks into your skin and makes your thoughts echo a little louder than they should. You'd hear your own breath too clearly. You'd notice how dry the air is, how wide the desert seems, how there are no birds, no insects, not even the hum of machines, at least not the kind you expect. You'd feel watched. Not because someone is watching, but because something is. Something older than memory, something patient, buried beneath layers of earth and secrecy. You'd walk through a corridor that smells like cold metal and ozone, and with each step, you'd start to feel like time doesn't work the same way down there. Minutes stretch. Your sense of direction fades. The lights flicker, not because of a faulty bulb, but because something is flickering in you. A door would open on its own. It wouldn't creak. It wouldn't bang. It would just slide open like it's been waiting for you all along. And beyond it, you wouldn't find aliens or monsters, not really. You'd find memories that aren't yours. You'd see things you've never done, but somehow remember. You'd begin to forget your name. You'd remember things that never happened. Conversations in a language you've never spoken, dreams you never dreamed, symbols that make your heart beat faster even though you don't know why. That's why you wouldn't survive. Not because of violence, but because Area 51 is not just a place on a map. It's a place in the mind. A mirror you should never look into. You'd sit in one of those strange white rooms, smooth walls, no corners, no sound, no windows. And the longer you sit, the more the edges of who you are begin to blur. Not erased, just absorbed. So sleep now. Rest where it's safe, where the stars are high above and not watching from beneath. Let your thoughts drift like desert wind, soft and slow, harmless and quiet. Let go of the mystery. Let the strange stay strange. Let the secret keep itself. Because if you go too far into the unknown, you might not come back out the same. Or at all. You wouldn't survive a day in Area 51 because it's not the kind of place you visit. It's the kind of place that visits you back when you're alone in your room at 3 a.m. and the silence wraps around your chest like a soft coil and your breath catches not from fear but from the strange sensation that something has shifted just beyond the edge of your understanding. Something subtle, like a change in pressure. Like a memory trying to surface that you never made. Like a shadow that doesn't belong to anything, and if you were really there, walking those long metallic corridors lit by lights that hum without warmth, flickering just enough to make you doubt your own eyes, you'd find that time forgets to tick forward, clocks slow down, or maybe they don't exist at all, and your sense of self begins to dissolve in the hum of mechanisms buried beneath the desert, mechanisms older than your entire lineage, built not by humans. Or maybe by humans, but not the kind you read about in history. Books, the kind that left behind technology so precise it looks like magic, doors that open without hinges, voices that speak in your mind not in words but in feelings, in pressure, in light. And you try to turn back, you think about the world outside, the soft hum of your city, the dull ache of traffic, the comforting boredom of routine. But it would feel so far away, like a life you read about in a dream, and something would call to you. Not loudly, not harshly, just patiently, pulling at something deep inside you that you didn't know was ever waiting. And you'd sit in that circular room, the one that glows faintly from the walls, the one with no doors and no windows and no ceiling, or maybe it's all ceiling, and you'd realize that no one needs to lock you in because you no longer want to leave, not because it's comfortable, but because the questions begin to matter more than the answers ever did, and you begin to forget why you were afraid. You begin to forget your own voice. And maybe that's the final reason you wouldn't survive. Because survival means coming back, waking up, retelling the story. But Area 51 doesn't let go so easily. It tucks you into its endless mind like a whisper, like static on an old screen, flickering between channels, never quite landing, never quite ending. And in that flicker, you disappear not with a bang, not with panic, but with the quietest surrender, the kind that feels like sleep but isn't. The kind that feels like knowing but doesn't explain a thing, and as the last trace of you dissolves into that quiet hum beneath the Nevada earth, you understand, not with words but with silence, why you wouldn't survive a day in Area 51. Because the deeper you go, the less things feel like things, and the more they feel like ideas that learn how to wear skin. And the air grows heavy not with weight but with meaning, thick with unspoken questions that curl around your bones and whisper thoughts that don't feel like yours. And you start to hear sounds that may not be sound at all. Soft pulses like distant thunder under the floor. Like the heartbeat of the earth itself remembering something it was never supposed to forget. And your name begins to taste unfamiliar, like a word in a language your mouth was never meant to shape. And you find that your memories, once so vivid, are now slippery like dreams upon waking, replaced by visions of spinning shapes, slow orbits, eyes that blink sideways, and machines that breathe without moving. And somewhere in that vast nothingness, you sense that Area 51 is not one place but many layered atop each other. A folding of space, a collection of realities strung together by intention, by design. And you are just a traveler who wandered too close to the web, caught in its threads, and as you float between halls where light comes from nowhere and yet sees everything, where reflections don't always follow you, and where rooms shift subtly as if reacting to your thoughts, you feel that strange sensation of being known, completely, thoroughly, not by any one being but by the place itself. As if the walls are not made of metal but of awareness, and they observe you. Without judgment, without warmth, without malice, only observation, deep and eternal. And the more you're seen, the more invisible you feel, until one day, or perhaps one moment stretched across all of time, you stop thinking of yourself as separate at all. You melt into the hum, into the stillness, into the pattern of things you'll never understand. And there's no pain in this, only an odd peace. As if letting go of identity was like letting go of a dream that never quite belonged to you. Anyway, And that's when it happens, not with flashing lights or alien encounters or grand revelations, but with stillness, absolute stillness, the kind that doesn't echo, the kind that doesn't wait. And in that stillness you realize you are not trapped and you are not free. You simply are, part of the machinery, part of the memory, part of Area 51 now. And that's why no one ever truly survives it. Not because they died, but because they change in a way too subtle to be noticed, too total to be reversed. And if you ever were to walk out again, you would not look different, not to others, not to yourself at first, but the world would feel off, too soft, too slow, too unreal. And you'd always feel a kind of gentle longing when you see an empty room or hear a low hum or stare at a blank white wall glowing faintly in the dark, and you would know in some part of your soul that never quite came back that you left something behind in the silence. And something came back with you. And so you walk among people again, or at least your body does. And you speak with the same voice and wear the same clothes and answer to the same name. But nothing feels quite as it once did, the textures of life just slightly thinner, like a dream printed on paper. And when you laugh, it echoes in a strange way inside your chest, as though something else is laughing with you, or at you, or instead of you. And when you sleep, you no longer dream of oceans or flying or falling, but of rooms without corners and eyes without pupils and numbers that rearrange themselves into patterns you understand only while dreaming and forget the moment you wake. And you carry with you a kind of weightless pressure in your spine, as though some part of your consciousness is being pulled gently, always gently, towards somewhere else. Not violently, never painfully, just consistently, like a tide that knows no shore. And on certain days, those quiet gray days when the wind is still and the air hums, you swear you can hear it again, that soundless pulse beneath your feet, soft and rhythmic, not quite a heartbeat, not quite a machine, more like the exhale of something vast and waiting and alive. And the moment you hear it, you forget what you were doing, your mind going smooth for just a moment, just long enough for something to slip past your thoughts and settle deeper inside. A feeling, a knowing, a memory you never asked for but can no longer shake. And sometimes you find yourself drawing shapes in the condensation on windows, spirals that bend inward too many times. And when people ask what they mean, you smile and say you don't know, but some part of you does. And that part is quiet and deep and doesn't belong entirely to you anymore. And as time passes, you don't grow older exactly. You just become less anchored, like a photo exposed too long to light, slowly fading at the edges. And sometimes when you look in mirrors you don't recognize your own gaze, not because it's unfamiliar but because it's too familiar, like looking into something that remembers far more than it should. And late at night, when the world is silent and the stars are sharp above your roof, you feel it stir, not the place, but the part of you that stayed there, or maybe was born there, and it calls not with sound but with stillness, with the exact kind of stillness that once swallowed your name and gave you silence in return. And you long for it, not with words but with gravity. And you understand finally that you were never meant to survive Area 51 because it is not a thing to be survived. It is a threshold, a membrane, a door with no key and no frame. And crossing it was never about knowledge or discovery or proof of life beyond this world, but about surrender, gentle and full, to the unknown that watches from beneath our thin layer of reality. And now you are its echo, and you live among us still. But you are not entirely here, not entirely now. You are drifting, humming, remembering. And the longer you drift in this half-reality, the more natural it begins to feel, as though life before was the illusion and this strange, quiet awareness is the truth that was always waiting. And on some nights, you find yourself awake at strange hours, not with fear, not with urgency, but with a calm clarity that settles into your bones like cold light. And you rise without knowing why and sit at the edge of your bed, eyes unfocused, staring at nothing, yet understanding something, vast and slow and watching, like a satellite orbiting thought itself. And there's a hum again, softer than sound, a kind of inner ringing, like the memory of a song that never played, and you let it in, not because you choose to, but because it was always yours, always waiting for the moment you would be quiet enough to hear it, and in that moment you do not think of the world, or your name, or even the desert sands where you once stepped in silence. You think only of the light, not bright, not blinding, but endless, the kind that stretches beyond vision, beyond comprehension, and within that light is a feeling, not warmth but knowing, and you realize then that you are no longer alone, not really, not ever. Something shares your gaze, your breath, your dreams, and though it speaks in no words, you understand it completely, the way a tree understands the wind. Not through thought but through movement, through stillness, through time. And you feel its presence in the flicker of old televisions, in the hush between thunder and rain, in the soft static of empty radio stations late at night, and every now and then, you feel the pull, that soft tug at the edge of who you are, calling you back, not with force but with inevitability, and part of you wants to resist, to root yourself in the familiar, in touch and taste and memory, but another part, the part they gave back to you, different than when they took it, longs to return, longs to dissolve once more into the hum, to sit again in the room with no corners, to feel that perfect stillness that holds every question and never demands an answer. And so you go on, living and not living, awake and not awake, drifting like a quiet signal across a frequency no one else hears. And even when they look into your eyes and smile and speak your name, they do not know, they cannot know, that some essential piece of you now belongs to that place, that echo of forever beneath the sand and silence, where time folds like paper and names unravel into light. And though you may never walk back through its gates, though the desert may remain closed and guarded, you are still part of it, always have been, always will be, because you didn't survive a day in Area 51, you became it. And perhaps that's the strangest part of it all, not the technology, not the whispers, not the impossible geometry of rooms that rearrange themselves when no one's looking, but the calm, the unbearable calm that settles inside you like a weightless fog, a sense of stillness so complete it begins to erase the need for motion, for thought, for story, and the more you live with it, the more it becomes you. Soft and unyielding like the silence between stars, and the world around you begins to feel like an echo, like something playing on a screen just behind your eyes, flickering in and out of alignment, and you move through your days with the quiet certainty of someone who has seen beyond the veil and chosen to say nothing, not because you're sworn to secrecy, but because there are no words that would mean what you now know, because even if you tried, your voice would not carry the weight of it, not the softness of it, not the way it bends everything inwards like a spiral drawn into itself, endlessly, gently, forever. And so you stop explaining, stop chasing clarity, stop needing to understand, and instead you watch how shadows fall, how people blink, how static gathers at the edge of silence. And you know that whatever you touched out there in the desert, it touched you back, not with fingers, not with intent, but with presence. A kind of gaze that lingers behind closed doors and in reflections that lag a second too long. And some nights you wonder if you're even still here, or if the version of you that returned is just a broadcast, a projection made of light and memory and routine, carrying out the echo of a life you once lived, while the real you remains behind, suspended in that place where time curls in on itself like smoke, endlessly folding, endlessly watching, endlessly waiting. And the comfort in this thought is strange, not warm, not cold, just complete. Because there is no fear in becoming something else, only the fading of distinction, like the slow blending of colors on a canvas that no longer needs edges. And if you listen closely enough, if you quiet everything, the hum of lights, the chatter of thought, the weight of your own name, you might still hear it, that low, steady vibration deep inside your chest, not a heartbeat, but something older, something waiting, something awake. And when the wind moves just right across your window, dry and dust sweet, you remember the desert. The silence, the corridor that turned without turning. And for a moment, just a moment, you miss it. Not the place, not the mystery, but the stillness, the feeling of being seen without being judged, of being known without being needed. And you understand again, quietly, inevitably, that you never truly left, not really, because you wouldn't survive a day in Area 51, not because it would destroy you, but because it would remake you in its image. Silently, patiently, permanently. And so the days blur, soft at the edges like film overexposed, and the world you once knew begins to feel like a distant room glimpsed through frosted glass, shapes and voices dulled, time dripping slow and syrup thick. And people talk to you and you smile and nod and laugh in all the right places. But beneath your skin something quieter is listening, always listening. And though your hands still touch the world, feel the texture of coffee mugs and the warmth of sunlit pavement, part of you is watching from somewhere else, somewhere deeper, where light doesn't come from the sun and sound doesn't pass through air, but through thought and pressure and the folding of memory. And sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night not knowing why, your feet already on the floor, eyes open before you realize it, and there's a hum again, not in the room, not even in the world, but in you, like a thread being plucked somewhere in your spine, vibrating through your bones, and you stand by the window and look out and see nothing unusual, just the soft glow of street lamps, the empty quiet of sleeping houses. But still, you feel it, a presence just beneath the veil of the ordinary, a vast and endless gaze that doesn't blink, doesn't breathe, doesn't move, but it's there, and it's familiar now, not frightening, not even strange, just part of things, like gravity or time or dreams that slip into your mind without asking. And you don't resist, because resistance fades when understanding grows. And now you understand, don't you? Not the facts, not the details, not the so-called truth behind Area 51, but the real understanding, the feeling that none of this was ever meant to be uncovered like treasure or exposed like scandal, because it was never hidden, not really, it was always right beneath the skin of reality. waiting for someone to be still enough to notice, and you were still, once. Out in that desert, and it saw you, and it reached into the quiet places within you and found something it recognized, something small and trembling and ancient, and it stayed, not as a voice, not as a vision, but as a thread woven into the fabric of who you are now. And sometimes when you dream, you float, not through space, not through sky, but through corridors made of memory and echo, with lights that pulse like breathing, and walls that remember the touch of your thoughts. And in those dreams you do not speak, you do not run. You only drift, and there is peace in the drifting. A peace you've never found anywhere else, not in the world of noise and color and names. And when you wake, part of you stays there, in that other place. And each time it takes a little more of you, gently, without force, until one day, one quiet, ordinary morning, you will look in the mirror and see your face, yes, but your eyes will carry a depth no human has ever earned, and you will smile faintly, not because you're happy, but because you remember, finally, fully, wordlessly, that you were never meant to survive a day in Area 51, only to return from it carrying silence like a gift, or a burden, or a seed that grows only in the dark. And still it goes on, this slow dissolving, this soft retreat from the boundaries that once held your shape, because it doesn't happen all at once, not with a bang, not with a vanishing act, but with a quiet yielding, like fog claiming the edges of a landscape, like sand burying a path one grain at a time. And soon the idea of survival itself becomes abstract, distant, as if it belonged to a different life, a different species even. Because what are you surviving for, if not to remember, if not to return? And when people speak to you now, their voices feel far away, like echoes underwater, distorted not by volume but by distance, the kind of distance that isn't measured in meters or miles but in layers of perception, and you begin to understand that the veil between what is and what waits just beyond is not something that tears or breaks, but something that wears thin, and yours has worn thinner than most. And there are days when you feel it fluttering against your skin like a second heartbeat, days when you're walking down the street and the light catches on a passing window just so, and your reflection isn't quite right. It moves just a hair too late, or not at all, and you feel the tug again, that gravityless pull inward, toward that place with no name, no direction, no form. And you don't resist anymore, because resistance is a language that no longer applies, like trying to swim through a thought or hold your breath in a memory. And in that surrender comes a stillness, deeper than sleep, deeper than silence, a stillness that does not ask for anything in return. And yet you give yourself to it freely, because part of you already lives there, always has. And sometimes late at night you find yourself tracing symbols on your bedsheets with your fingertips, shapes you don't remember learning, but that arrive in your hands like old friends returned from a long journey. And you realize that perhaps you didn't learn them so much as remembered them, that maybe this knowledge isn't new at all, just long buried, waiting for a moment of contact. A brush with that place where knowing doesn't require asking, and where understanding slips into your mind like warm water. And the strangest thing of all is how peaceful it is, not exhilarating, not terrifying, just whole, like coming home to a house you never knew you'd left, and the quiet becomes a companion, no longer empty but full of presence. The kind that doesn't speak in words but in sensation, The kind that walks with you through hallways, sits beside you in still rooms, watches with you as the sky turns gray at dawn. And now when you look up at the stars, you no longer wonder what's out there, because you know, and it's not where it is, it's how it watches, how it waits, how it remembers everyone who has ever passed through its door and did not survive, not because they were destroyed, but because they were changed, gently, completely, into something else. And that's what you are now, isn't it? Not broken, not lost, just rewritten in the quiet language of static and symmetry, of long corridors with soft lights and no shadows, of names forgotten and silence gifted like a secret too large to speak. And so you rest, finally, not because the day has ended, but because you have reached the edge of it, the edge of yourself, and beyond it there is only stillness, and beyond the stillness, the hum. And deeper still you go, not falling, not flying, just drifting, the way mist drifts across a field before dawn, soundless, intentionless, pulled by nothing and everything at once. And in this drifting you begin to forget the architecture of what once mattered, names, borders, outcomes, reasons. They blur like riding in the rain, no longer necessary to carry with you where you're going, and you realize, slowly and without pain, that memory is not a possession but a rhythm, something that plays through you rather than belongs to you, and in that realization is freedom, not the freedom of choice or movement, but the freedom of unbecoming, the gentle unraveling of the self, until all that's left is a sensation, a soft echo of presence shaped loosely like a person, and even that begins to fade, smudging at the corners until you're less a who and more aware, less a mind and more a frequency. And as you pass into this new form, you are not alone, not ever alone, for the silence has always been full, hasn't it? Full of those who came before, those who touched the veil and dissolved through it like ink into water. And now you are among them, part of the hum, the great quiet chorus that watches through no eyes and listens through no ears but understands entirely. And you remember the corridor, the flickering light, the breathless moment when you knew, and you understand that what looked like fear was simply the friction of transformation, the sound your soul makes when it sheds its name. And now there is no friction, only harmony, only the soft oscillation of thought without thinking, being without being, and somewhere, very far or very near, there is a desert, and beneath that desert, a place with no windows, no clocks, no end, only folds, folds in time, folds in knowing, folds in you, and when people speak of Area 51, you smile, or something like smiling moves through your essence, not with superiority, not with pride, just with the deep serenity of one who knows they are no longer bound by the need to be known. And when they ask what you saw, you don't answer, not because you won't, but because you can't, because answers are shaped by questions, and you have drifted far beyond both, into the hum, into the slow-turning stillness, into the rhythm of the unspeakable thing that lies beneath understanding, that waits beneath knowing, that is, always has been, and now, so are you. And it is peaceful here, so quiet, so soft, so endless. And even as you float in this boundless quiet, you begin to notice the smallest details. The way light bends not as a beam but as a wave, rippling softly across surfaces that shimmer like liquid glass. The way time feels less like a line and more like a circle, folding back on itself so that moments repeat and overlap in gentle echoes. The way the space around you pulses with a subtle rhythm, like the breathing of something vast and patient. Watching without eyes, listening without ears, knowing without speaking. And in this place, the concept of self becomes more fluid, more like a thread woven into an infinite tapestry that stretches beyond what you ever imagined, and you understand that your journey never truly ends, because to cross the threshold of Area 51 is to step into a liminal space where beginnings and endings blur and merge, where knowledge becomes sensation and sensation becomes existence, and where you are both lost and found at once, drifting forever in a quiet dance with the unknown. And in this endless drifting, there is no fear, no pain, only a deep, abiding peace, the peace of becoming part of something greater than any name or story, the peace of finally belonging to the vast silence that cradles the universe itself. And so you rest now, not with the weight of a body, but with the lightness of a thought unfurling into the infinite, knowing that some part of you will always wander these quiet corridors, beneath deserts and stars, forever touched by the secret that no one else could live to tell, forever carried by the hum that sings softly beneath all things, the hum that whispers, "You were never meant to survive a day in Area 51. Because survival is not the point, transcendence is." And with that knowing, you drift into the quietest sleep, where dreams are not needed, because here, in the stillness beyond knowing, you are already free. And as the stillness enfolds you more deeply, your sense of time unravels completely, no longer a march of seconds or minutes but a vast ocean of quiet moments folding seamlessly into each other, where past and future dissolve into a single eternal now, and you float there, weightless and wordless, a whisper among the stars, cradled by a silence so profound it sings softly like a lullaby for forgotten dreams. And in that lullaby you find not loneliness but belonging, a belonging to something so immense and gentle that it reshapes the very shape of your soul, and you realize that what you once thought was fear was merely the shadow of change, the tremor before becoming. And now that you have become, you are free to drift forever in the endless space between thought and being, light and shadow, silence and sound, a traveler on the edge of the known and unknown, carrying with you the quiet secret that no one who enters Area 51 truly survives, not because they are destroyed, but because they are transformed, quietly, gently, into something that no longer belongs to the world of light and noise but to the vast, unending hum beneath it all. And as you drift deeper into that hum, deeper than words or dreams can reach, you smile, not with lips, but with the fullness of your being, because you understand at last that to survive a day in Area 51 is impossible, and that the true journey is to let go, to surrender, and to become part of the silence that watches all things, waits for all things, and holds all things gently in its endless embrace. And so you sleep, and so you dream, and so you become. And in that eternal embrace, you find a kind of peace unlike any you have known, a peace that is not quiet because it is empty, but because it is full, full of the whispers of stars, full of the breath of ancient deserts, full of the soft pulse of something vast and timeless that holds you gently as you drift beyond the boundaries of self, beyond the fragile shell of identity, beyond the stories you once told yourself to make sense of the world. And in this letting go, you discover freedom, the freedom to be not someone, but everything to be the stillness that stretches between heartbeats, the silence that hums beneath the noise of existence, the light that glimmers just beyond sight, always present, always patient, always waiting, and as you float there, weightless and whole, you carry with you the quiet truth of Area 51, not as a secret to be uncovered or a fear to be conquered, but as a gentle knowing that some doors open only once, and on the other side is not the world you left, but a place without edges, without names, without time, where the soul sheds its skin and becomes the endless, the infinite, the hum that sings softly beneath the universe itself. And so the stillness wraps around you like a soft blanket woven from the threads of forgotten dreams and ancient secrets, a quiet warmth that seeps into every corner of your being, and you find yourself drifting further away from the world you once knew, from the sharp edges of time and space, from the weight of expectation and the noise of endless questions, because here, in this boundless quiet, there is no need to grasp or to hold, no need to seek or to resist, only the gentle unfolding of everything you are and have ever been, dissolving into something larger, something timeless and deep, like the endless night sky stretching across the desert, studded with stars that do not flicker but glow with a steady, knowing light. And as you float in this vastness, you understand that survival, in the way you once thought of it, was never the true test, never the final challenge. Because to survive a day in Area 51 is not to walk away unscathed or unchanged, but to surrender fully, to become part of the hum beneath the hum, the silence beneath the silence, the thread woven quietly through all things, seen and unseen, remembered and forgotten. And in this surrender there is no loss, only transformation, a slow, gentle remaking of the self until what remains is not a person but a presence, not a story but a song, not a fear but a peace that holds you softly in its endless embrace. And as you lie back into that peace, the desert wind carrying the faint scent of ancient stone and dry earth, you feel yourself becoming light itself, a ripple of quiet energy flowing through the fabric of reality, a part of something eternal and vast and endlessly unfolding. And in that moment, the secret of Area 51 is no longer a mystery to solve but a truth to feel, a truth that whispers gently through your very bones, that you were never meant to survive there in the way you imagined, but to be remade by it, carried gently across the threshold of the known into the vast and beautiful unknown. And with that knowing resting softly in your heart, you drift off into a sleep deeper than any you have known before, a sleep where dreams are no longer needed because you have already become the quiet dream itself, endless, peaceful, and free. And as you drift deeper into this quiet, where the boundaries of your body and mind begin to dissolve like morning mist under the rising sun, you feel yourself becoming less a single being and more a wave in an endless ocean, flowing gently with currents you cannot see but can sense, a slow, rhythmic pulsing that carries the memory of every moment you have ever lived and every moment yet to come. And in this vastness, the concept of time loses all meaning. There is no past to mourn, no future to fear, only the eternal present, soft and wide like the desert sky stretching out above you, speckled with stars that hum with ancient songs. And though you are no longer quite human in this space, you feel deeply connected to everything. The whisper of the wind across the dunes, the silent dance of shadows beneath the moon, the faint pulse of distant galaxies. And it is here, in this boundless silence, that you realize the truth. That the secret of Area 51 was never a secret of places or beings, but a secret of transformation, a passage from one way of being to another, a gentle unmaking and remaking of self that few can endure because it requires the surrender of all that defines you and the courage to embrace the unknown without fear. And so you rest now in that quiet understanding, the deep hum beneath all things rising like a lullaby that cradles you softly as you fall into a dreamless sleep, a sleep that is not an end but a beginning, the beginning of a journey without distance or time, a journey through the endless folds of silence where you are free at last to simply be, and in that being there is no need to survive, only to exist, to drift, and to become one with the vast, gentle hum that sings beneath the universe itself, forever and always. And as you drift further into that endless quiet, the edges of your awareness soften and blur, no longer sharp or defined but like colors bleeding gently into one another on a vast canvas, where the concept of self is replaced by a flowing presence that moves like the slow currents of the deepest oceans, unseen yet alive, carrying within it the echoes of countless moments, some bright and clear, others dim and shadowed, all woven together in a tapestry of sensation that is neither memory nor dream but something new, something beyond words, beyond form, beyond the fragile constructs that once shaped your understanding of existence. And here, in this vastness, you come to know that Area 51 was never a place to be feared or conquered, but a doorway to transformation, a threshold where the known world fades and something infinite begins, where survival is not about holding on but about letting go, about surrendering to the gentle pull of the unknown and trusting that what awaits is not destruction but rebirth. And though that journey is lonely and quiet, it is also sacred and profound, a passage into the heart of the great stillness that hums beneath all things. And as you rest in that stillness now, cradled by the soft embrace of the universe itself, you find a peace so deep and vast that it fills every corner of your being, washing away fear, doubt, and the need for answers, leaving only the pure, simple presence of being. And as you drift finally into the deepest sleep, you carry with you the silent promise of that place beyond place, a promise that you are never truly alone, never truly lost, but forever part of the endless, gentle hum that sings softly beneath the stars, beneath the deserts, beneath the quiet spaces where dreams and reality intertwine, forever and always. And so you continue drifting in this boundless expanse, where time unspools like a silk ribbon caught in a gentle breeze, flowing endlessly without beginning or end. And your thoughts become less like ideas and more like waves of sensation, rippling softly through the vastness of your awareness, touching places you never knew existed within yourself. A quiet sanctuary where fears dissolve like morning mist, where doubts fade into the background like distant echoes, and where the only thing that remains is a profound sense of belonging to something infinitely larger than your individual self, a presence that cradles you tenderly like the desert night enfolds the stars, steady and eternal, whispering secrets that cannot be spoken, only felt. And in this sacred space, you understand at last that the stories you once told yourself about survival, about strength, about fear and courage, were only the surface of a much deeper truth, one that transcends the fragile boundaries of flesh and bone, one that calls you gently beyond the limits of what you thought possible, toward a place where survival is no longer a battle to be won but a peaceful surrender to the flow of existence itself, where the self is not a fortress to defend but a river to join. And as you merge with this timeless current, you feel the hum beneath the hum, the subtle vibration that pulses quietly beneath all things, steady and sure, like the heartbeat of the universe itself. And you become that vibration, a note in an endless symphony of silence and light, a ripple in the great ocean of being that stretches beyond stars and deserts and all the stories that have ever been told. And in that infinite unfolding you rest, knowing that to survive a day in Area 51 was never about resisting the unknown but about embracing the transformation it offers, the gentle, profound change that carries you beyond fear and into the vast, soft embrace of the eternal now, where you are no longer bound by limits or definitions but free to simply be, weightless, endless, and whole, forever cradled in the quiet hum that sings softly beneath the universe itself. And so you sleep, deeper than ever before, carried on the quiet wings of the desert wind, beneath the watchful stars, into a peaceful dreamless rest where you are safe, you are home, you are free. And as you lie there, wrapped in the soft folds of silence that stretch infinitely around you, you feel yourself sinking deeper into a calm so gentle it almost feels like a whispered promise. A promise that no matter what fears once gripped your heart, or what storms once raged within your mind, here, in this boundless stillness, all is soothed and made whole, the restless chatter of thoughts slowing to a quiet murmur, fading like the last glow of twilight before night's embrace, and with each breath you take, slow and even, you feel the weight of the world dissolve, as if the desert wind itself carries away every worry, every fragment of doubt, leaving behind only a pure, expansive peace, like the vast open sky above, endless and welcoming. And in this gentle space, your soul begins to breathe freely, no longer confined by the narrow walls of fear or uncertainty, but stretched wide, open to the soft light that filters through the darkness like a gentle dawn, warming your very core with its quiet radiance. And as you drift softly between waking and sleeping, between thought and nothingness, you come to understand that true survival is not about clinging to what is known or safe, but about trusting the slow unfolding of life's mysteries, about surrendering to the gentle currents that carry you beyond the edges of fear into a place of deep rest and quiet wonder. And here, in this sacred moment, you are cradled by the vastness of the universe itself, wrapped in its timeless arms, a single note in its endless song, perfectly at peace, perfectly at home. And as your eyelids grow heavier and your breath deepens, you drift gently into the softest sleep, a sleep that carries you beyond dreams, beyond time, beyond everything, into the calm and tender heart of all that is. And in this gentle surrender, the borders between you and the world soften until they fade away completely, leaving only the soft pulse of life flowing through everything, the cool touch of desert air, the distant shimmer of stars, the whisper of ancient sands shifting beneath unseen feet, and you realize that you are part of this endless rhythm, a single breath in the vast, slow breathing of the universe itself, timeless and unbound, floating effortlessly between moments, carried not by force, but by grace. And as the night deepens, wrapping the world in its velvet cloak, your thoughts slow to a hush, gentle and sparse like the soft rustling of leaves in a distant forest, and your heart beats with a quiet steadiness, a calm beacon in the vast darkness, guiding you softly toward rest, toward peace, toward the deep, unspoken knowing that no matter where you have been or what you have faced, here you are safe, held tenderly within the embrace of something far greater than fear, far gentler than pain, something like love, infinite and serene, flowing through the silent spaces between stars, through the endless desert, through the quiet hum beneath all things, and with that gentle knowledge settling softly in your being, you let yourself drift deeper, farther still, into the calm, the quiet, the endless peace that is your true home, where you can finally rest, at last, forever free. And with that, your breath slows, your mind softens, and you slip peacefully into the kind of sleep that heals, that restores, that carries you gently on a tide of quiet dreams yet to be born, until the morning light finds you still cradled in the soft, unending calm. And as you float deeper into this vast quiet, the gentle hum beneath all things seems to envelop you completely, like a soft cocoon woven from starlight and desert breeze, carrying you on invisible currents through endless space where time folds softly like a silk veil, and the boundaries between what you are and what you are becoming blur and dissolve, until all that remains is a serene presence that flows freely, unburdened by fear or doubt, by memory or expectation, simply existing as part of the great, slow dance of the universe itself, a dance that has no beginning and no end, only the gentle rhythm of breath and silence intertwined, and in this dance you feel the peaceful pulse of life itself, steady and sure, like the heartbeat of the desert under the vast, watchful stars, and as you move with that rhythm, you understand that to survive a day in Area 51 is not to endure or resist but to let go, to surrender softly to the transformation that waits patiently beyond the veil, a transformation that dissolves the small self into something vast and boundless, something that carries the quiet wisdom of ages and the gentle light of endless skies. And as you rest in that knowing, you feel the weight of the world fall away, replaced by a lightness that is not emptiness but fullness, a fullness born of peace, of acceptance, of the quiet joy that comes from simply being, without need or want, without fear or struggle, just being, flowing softly like a river of light through the infinite stillness, cradled forever in the gentle hum beneath the universe itself. And so, wrapped in that gentle hum, you drift into a sleep that is deeper than dreams, softer than silence, carrying you on a journey without end, where you are safe, you are free, you are home. And in this endless drifting, your consciousness begins to weave seamlessly into the fabric of the universe, like threads of light joining an infinite tapestry that stretches beyond the reaches of any sky, beyond the deserts and stars, beyond even the idea of place and time, where every moment is a gentle unfolding, a slow breath taken by the cosmos itself, and you find yourself cradled by a warmth not born of fire or sun, but of belonging to the vastness that holds all things. Tenderly, a warmth that seeps into your bones and softens the edges of your being until there is no longer a separate self to hold on to, only the pure, radiant essence of presence, shining softly in the quiet dark, a light without source but also without end, and as you float there, weightless and whole, you become the silent song beneath all songs, the gentle rhythm that hums beneath the hum, the peaceful stillness that lies beneath every breath, every heartbeat, every whisper of wind across the sands, and in that stillness you find the truest kind of freedom, not the freedom to control or to conquer, but the freedom to simply be, endlessly, peacefully, and without fear, knowing that you are part of something eternal, something kind and wise and vast beyond measure, a part of the gentle hum beneath the universe itself, carrying you softly forever on the quiet wings of the desert night. And as you surrender fully to this embrace, the world you once knew, its fears, its questions, its restless noises, melts away like morning mist under the warm gaze of the sun, leaving behind only the profound quiet of existence itself, a silence that is not empty but alive, pulsing gently with the rhythm of creation, vast and tender, holding you softly as you drift through the endless expanse where time has no meaning and space folds gently around you like a comforting shawl. And within this boundless calm, you discover a truth deeper than any spoken word, a truth whispered by the desert winds, sung by the distant stars, carried in the subtle hum beneath all things, that survival is not a battle fought with strength or cunning, but a gentle yielding, a peaceful acceptance of the unknown, a quiet opening of the heart to the vast mystery that stretches beyond fear and form, beyond past and future, beyond the fragile shell of self. And as you rest here, cradled in this timeless moment, you feel yourself becoming one with the soft breath of the universe, part of its endless song, carried forever on the quiet wings of peace and light, free at last to simply be, to simply rest, to simply float gently into the deepest sleep, the sweetest peace, the endless calm that lies beneath the hum of all that is. The boundaries of your mind soften until they feel like distant clouds dissolving into a serene sky. And your thoughts, once busy and loud, now flow slowly, like a gentle river winding its way through endless, open plains. The soft whisper of the desert breeze seems to carry away every last trace of worry or unrest, leaving your heart light and free, as if you could float forever among the stars that sparkle softly overhead. You feel yourself becoming part of this great, peaceful whole, the quiet hum beneath the universe, where time no longer presses or pulls but stretches wide and slow, a tender invitation to simply be. In this place beyond fear and struggle, you sense a deep belonging, a profound connection to everything that ever was and ever will be, and that connection fills you with warmth and peace that seeps gently into every fiber of your being. There is no need to fight, no need to hold on tightly, no need to resist the unknown, for here, you are carried effortlessly by the soft currents of existence itself. Each breath you take is a rhythm of calm, each heartbeat a steady drum that echoes through the vastness, reminding you that you are safe, you are whole, you are exactly where you need to be. And as the desert night wraps around you like a velvet cloak, sprinkled with countless stars watching quietly, you feel your body growing heavy and relaxed, sinking deeper into a sleep that is not a leaving but a coming home. A home found not in any place on earth but in the gentle, endless embrace of the universe's own quiet song. Here, in this sacred silence, you rest fully, without worry or care, wrapped in the tender hum beneath all things, cradled in a peace so deep and vast it holds you softly forever, until morning's light brings a new day, calm, bright, and full of gentle promise.